Isekai, the anime genre that's taken the industry by storm, has witnessed an explosive surge in popularity. With the flood of new shows saturating the scene, it's like navigating a sea of options, each one vying for your attention. Yet, amidst this ocean of content, true gems often get lost, overshadowed by the frenzy of competition. Uncover the hidden treasures, the underrated shows waiting to be discovered, as we dive into the lesser-known realms of Isekai. In today's video, we're about to unveil a curated list of the most overlooked and underappreciated Isekai anime that deserve more than a second glance. Buckle up as we journey beyond the mainstream and explore the unsung heroes of this fantastical genre, our top picks that might have slipped under your radar. 15. Now and Then, Here and There. We're starting the list with the hidden gem from 1999 titled Now and Then, Here and There, otherwise known as Ima Solo ni Iruboku. This sci-fi and adventure anime is a 13-episode series that follows the life of a young boy named Shuzo Matsutani in his attempt to save the life of an unknown girl in another world. It all starts when Shu is at an industrial park, and then all of a sudden, he's transported to a desolate world suffering from drought. This dry world appears to be some kind of future Earth ruled by machines, and upon arriving there, the protagonist must now protect an unknown girl named Lala Ru. Apparently, this mysterious girl has now become the target of the machines because she possesses a special pendant, Strangely, which contains a vast amount of water, and it also gives her the power to create and control water in this future Earth that's plagued with drought. Shu gets to know about her shortly after being transported to the world because he's beaten, interrogated, and then forced to join an army of children that are mandated to search for water. Despite wishing to return home, he also resolves to find Lala Ru and protect her, and that sets the tone for a pretty interesting plot. Even though the series isn't as popular as it should be, it's a very relatable and intriguing one, as it deals with moral issues relating to war, abuse, and even the exploitation of children. Overall, it's a pretty good watch, and you should probably consider checking it out. 14. The 12 Kingdoms. Up next, we have another beautiful isekai series that has been overshadowed by the more popular ones, even though it's actually a great watch. At number 14, we have the anime series titled The 12 Kingdoms. The reason the show is so underrated is probably because it's not that popular among younger viewers. The first episode aired in 2002 and ran a total of 45 episodes before drawing the curtains in 2003. This anime series is also an adaptation of the novel, written by Fuyumi Ono, and it centers on the life of a Japanese girl named Yuko Nakajima. She's suddenly transported to another world and discovers that she's now the flaming red-haired ruler of a fantasy kingdom called Ki. This strange series of events all begins when the regular high school student Yoko is approached by a man who surprisingly claims that he's been searching for her and that she's the rightful ruler of his kingdom. The mysterious man then takes her and two of her classmates to another world, where their appearances are changed. She can even understand the languages of the people living there, even though her classmates can't. Unfortunately, because they come from the earth, they're considered kaikyaku, and this quickly turns them into hunted fugitives on the run. As a result, Yuko and her classmates run away from there and then wander the land of the 12 kingdoms, trying to figure out why they've been brought to this fantasy world. 13. Hack Sign. Over the years, Isekai has become more thrilling with a lot of cool plot ideas, and one of them is the story which involves being transported into a game world. If you're a fan of video games or simply just an isekai lover, then Hack Sign would definitely be on your watch list. This underrated and hidden gem is another selection from the early 2000s, which means that younger anime fans might not be familiar with it. The series debuted in 2002, making it one of those early isekai centered around video games, and it follows the life of a mysterious virtual reality MMORPG player, Tsukasa, who gets into a problem at the beginning of the story. All of a sudden, Tsukasa finds himself unable to log out of the game, while others leave and come back as they please. As a result, eyebrows are raised and people start to suspect that he's a hacker. Those who don't believe that there's something deeper going on in his life, and for the next 28 episodes, the protagonist is hit with many questions that he has to solve. Due to losing his memory of who he was, and not knowing why he got trapped in the game, Tsukasa resolves to find answers, and along the line, he goes on a thrilling journey of self-discovery in the virtual world. Number 12. Escaflown. Not surprisingly, number 12 is yet another relatively old show from the 1990s, which pretty much explains why a very decent show like this is so unknown and underrated. Here, we'll be looking at the 1996 Isekai that was quite literally one of the series that set the foundation for the entire genre. This gem was directed by Shoji Kawamori, and ran for 26 episodes after airing in 1996. Even though it's generally considered strictly a fantasy and mecha anime, this series actually features many other genres in it. From romance to shonen, drama, and even being psychological, Escaflown does a very impressive job blending in all of these elements throughout its run. The plot is about Hitomi Kanzaki, a 15-year-old girl who gets involved with Van Fannel, the Fennelian prince, and this leads to her getting transported to a parallel dimension of their world, Gaia, along with them. It all happens when Van, the prince from the alternate world, is trying to outrun a dragon. He comes across Hitomi, and her interest in magic and fortune-telling is what helps him escape. After that, they return to Gaia together, where they must face a dangerous empire called Zybok, but along the way, they go on several journeys together, creating a much stronger bond between themselves and the friends they make during their adventures. This series is one of the very early examples of the isekai genre, as it has a very different feel from the modern day shows with similar story types. Number 11. Recreators. Next on the list, we have a very exciting, yet insanely underrated isekai. The series poses the question, which makes you wonder if all the fantasy worlds we think are just for entertainment actually exist. In Recreators, we get to see just what would happen if they were actually real. Because when Sota Mizushino, a high school student, is watching an anime to get inspiration for a light novel project he's working on, he suddenly gets sucked into the world of the anime he's watching. This 2017 gem has a total of 22 episodes and ran for only one season, and features different genres including action, thriller, drama, and of course, fantasy. Although Sota returns from the fantasy world rather quickly, he's shocked to discover that the anime's protagonist, a warrior princess named Celestia Eupitilia, is now with him. However, she's just one of many more of the characters to arrive in the real world, and this sets the tone for a story where fictional characters suddenly come to life. They're all transported to a place called the Realm of Gods. While some of these characters seek to meet their creators, others have more sinister intentions. Before long, characters from anime, video games, and even manga appear, and Sota finds himself in the middle of a battle between them, all because of the show's main antagonist, Altair. In all, this show does a very good job portraying what would happen if fictional characters came to life, and even though it doesn't have a lot of popularity, it's still a very nice anime to check out, especially since it's pretty short with only one season. Number 10. Problem children are coming from another world, aren't they? It's no surprise that the isekai genre has a habit of telling you what it's about with the title, and this next show does that very specifically. At number 10, we have the anime titled Problem Children Are Coming from Another World, Aren't They? This anime adaptation aired in 2013, and it was inspired by a light novel series written by Taro Tatsunoko and illustrated by Yu Amano. Once again, this underrated anime series only had a season, and that's a shame because it actually provides a very interesting story overall. The show follows the lives of three teenagers, Izuyoi Sakamaki, Asuka Kodo, and Yu Kasukabe, but they're no ordinary teenagers because they all have spectacular psychic powers. You'd expect that this makes their lives very exciting and all, while living in the normal world, but that's not the case since they're actually bored out of their minds all the time. However, that changes when they're invited to the mysterious world of Little Garden. In this fantasy world, they're welcomed by a woman who offers them the chance to participate in some high-stakes games known as Gift Game, which will push their powers to the limit. However, there's one condition, and this is the fact that they have to join the woman's fallen community called No Name. Of course, the bored teenagers accept the terms and take part in the gift game shortly after, hoping to help the family community get back to winning ways. As they spend more time in the fantasy world of Little Garden, they learn about the tyrannical demon lords. So for the first time, they actually get a chance to use their special powers for something greater, because they resolve to overthrow these demon lords. Number 9. Didn't I say to make my abilities average in the next life? At number 9, we'll be looking at another isekai with a pretty long name, and it also happens to be a hidden gem of the genre as well. Didn't I say to make my abilities average in the next life is the title of this next series, and from the name, you can already get an idea of what the story is going to be like. Well, it centers around the protagonist, Misato Kirihara, a Japanese teenager who also happens to be a genius. Unfortunately, this special trait kind of isolates her from her peers, so she lives a pretty lonely life because of it. When her brilliance starts to look like a curse, Misoda is suddenly reincarnated into a fantasy world, and the moment she arrives, all she just wants is to be an average person for the rest of her life. Despite being promised that she would have a normal average life in this world, she quickly finds out that average doesn't mean the same thing there. As such, she ends up getting reincarnated as the daughter of a noble, and she's also blessed with exceptional magic talent. Even though this isn't what she signed up for, she remains determined to live an average life, so she leaves her family and enrolls in a hunter school, where she disguises herself as someone else with weaker magical abilities. Unfortunately for Misoda, keeping her secret and leading a normal life won't be easy because of the ridiculous events that keep taking place around her. Overall, this show presents a really interesting adventure, and since the first season aired in 2019, there's a chance we'll get to see a sequel soon. Number 8. Restaurant to Another World. Up next on the list of underrated isekai, we have Restaurant to Another World. The series was first created as a light novel written by Junpei Inuzuka and illustrated by Katsumi Inami. The summary of the story is basically what happens when fantasy creatures get involved with the culinary activities of the real world. This feel-good anime follows the life of a seemingly average restaurant in Tokyo named Yoshoku no Nekoya, which specializes in serving Western and Japanese delicacies to its customers. While nothing seems out of the ordinary with this system, it turns out that every Saturday, a portal connecting the restaurant to the fantasy world opens up. Through this portal, various fantasy characters can come in to enjoy real-world food, making Yoshiko no Nakoya the only real-world establishment to have interdimensional customers. The animation of this fresh plot first graced the screens of anime fans in 2017, and since then, only 2 seasons have been released. Restaurant in Another World is a relaxing series with a cool plot, but it doesn't seem to be getting as much love as it deserves. Hopefully, more of the anime community get to discover this hidden gem of the genre. Number 7. My Next Life as a Villainous. All routes lead to doom. Imagine getting reincarnated into your favorite video game. Sounds cool, right? Yeah, well it does, but that's probably only if you get to play the hero. My Next Life as a Villainous is a show that presents the exact opposite, because in this series, the protagonist, Katarina Clays, gets sucked into a video game where she becomes the villain. As the daughter of a duke in a game called Fortune Lover, she lives a very carefree life and forgets everything about her former life. That's until she suffers a head injury one day, which triggers all the memories of her past life as a gamer to come back to her. Realizing that she's now the villain she once played against, Katarina tries everything to be good, but unfortunately, the game makes life pretty hard for its antagonist, and so it looks like she's doomed to a miserable future no matter what she does. Knowing that she's either going to end up being exiled or killed, she must now find an unconventional route to happiness in the game. My Next Life as a Villainous has 2 seasons out so far, since its debut in 2020, so this means a 3rd season should be in the works right about now. Number 6. Drifters. At number 6, we have a historical anime from 2006 titled Drifters. If you've ever had the oddly specific dream of wanting to fight in another world alongside many of the creatures of different races, then this underrated isekai should definitely be on your watch list. It begins when a group of magicians summon historical warriors to fight against fantastic creatures. It centers on Shimazu Toyohisa, a real-life samurai who fought in the pivotal moments of the Battle of Sekigahara in the year 1600. However, During the battle, he's lethally wounded, and in his dying moments, he's suddenly transported to a fantasy world of magic. He finds himself standing in a shining hallway filled with doors. All of a sudden, he's pulled into one of the doors, and then realizes that he's been reincarnated in a strange new world filled with fantastical beasts and warriors from all across history. Famous heroes like Nobunaga Oda and Saint Joan of Arc are also here. And that's when Toyohisa realizes that he and all these other historical figures are drifters, the people who've been gathered to fight the Ort Empire and the powerful Ents. It turns out that the Ort Empire has been killing elves and demi-humans, whose only hope of survival now is the group of warriors called the Drifters. These heroes from different timelines and diverse cultures will now have to work together in a strange land to destroy the Empire for good. Number 5. Outbreak Company. The next underrated isekai on our list is The Outbreak Company, an anime drama from 2013. Imagine finally getting a chance to put your knowledge of anime, manga, and video games to very good use, even to the point where you're offered a job for them. Well, that's exactly what happens in this series when an introverted young man named Shinichi Kano gets offered a job thanks to his vast knowledge of anime and manga. However, just a few moments after meeting his employer, he's kidnapped, and when he wakes up, he finds himself in an alternate world fantasy setup. That's when the Japanese government informs him that he's been selected to help improve the country's relations with this new world by establishing a company that will be used to spread unique Japanese creations and culture to the inhabitants. In other words, Shinichi is assigned to spread otaku culture to the unfamiliar yet fantastical Didnt Empire. As you might have guessed, this mission won't be easy at all, because the Didnt Empire also has its own cultures, traditions, and discriminatory beliefs, which makes marketing there extremely difficult for the protagonist. With the odds stacked against him, Shinichi must now use his vast knowledge to find a way to spread Japanese culture in this new and unexplored world. Number 4. The Devil is a Parttimer. At number 4, we have a criminally underrated isekai titled The Devil is a Parttimer. This show is so good that its popularity is honestly disappointing when compared. The amazing series flips the tables on the conventional isekai trope where the MC goes from the real world to be reincarnated in a fantasy world. Rather than that, The Devil is a Parttimer is actually about the demon lord Satan of Isla and his general and how they suddenly find themselves in the human world. Just when he was moments away from conquering the fantasy world, he's defeated by the hero, Amelia, so he escapes through a portal not knowing that his entire life is about to change. Imagine a demon lord from a magical realm getting stuck in the bustling city of Tokyo in modern-day Japan. He swears vengeance against the hero who defeated him, but first, he must find a way to survive in this new world. To make matters worse, he finds out that the human world drains his magic, so with no other option, he decides to take up a normal human life with his general, Ashiya, especially since they both now look exactly like regular humans too. With no magic or understanding of how the human world works, the former demon lord and his general scramble to fit in. And what better way to do that than by getting regular human jobs? It's certainly not easy, but with time, he gets used to it and even starts to forget about his revenge. That's until a familiar person from Isla arrives in Japan. That's right, everything takes a different turn when hero Amelia finds herself in Tokyo. Things get even crazier when the sworn enemy moves in next to the demon lord. We've now gotten to the top 3 picks of this list, and we're opening this category with a very funny, action, and battle-themed anime. Number 3. Cautious Hero. The hero is overpowered, but overly cautious. It's crazy to think that an anime character would have the kind of power that Seiya Ryuguin does, and still be extremely cautious about everything. Sure, most isekai protagonists can be pretty reckless with their powers, but this guy takes being careful to a whole new level. Cautious Hero anime debuted in 2019 with only 1 season, and it features one of the most cautious characters ever seen in isekai. Seiya is unceremoniously summoned to a heavenly realm one day by the goddess Ristarte, who's in search of a hero to help her save a fantasy world from the demon lord threatening it. The S-rank world of Gaybrand proved to be very dangerous, and as such, The goddess Restarte was instructed to choose a hero who would be able to defeat the enemies. During a search, she comes across Seiya, a character whose stats are all insanely higher than the other options. Seems like the perfect candidate, right? Restarte picks him as her hero and summons him to the demon realm, but that's when she realizes he's overly cautious about every single thing. The guy even refuses to enter the safest regions of Gaybrand, claiming that he won't go until he's properly trained. He's literally the most powerful person among all the other options, and still, he is this careful. So Restarte is pretty disappointed. His behavior drives the goddess crazy at first, but when they finally enter the dangerous land of Gaybrand and see all the powerful foes they must contend with, she realizes that this caution is very much justified. Number 2. Ascendance of a Bookworm. At number 2, we have one of the most wholesome anime you can find out there. It also deserves a lot more attention considering what a beauty it is to watch even after 3 seasons. We're talking about the isekai titled Ascendance of a Bookworm, and it focuses on the life of a Motosu Urano, a young book-loving student who meets her end under a pile of books during an earthquake. After passing away, she wakes up in the body of a sick 5-year-old girl named Mine, who lives in medieval times. As if this wasn't bad enough, she quickly finds out that in this new world, books are even rarer than gold and are only available to the rich and powerful citizens. All of this added to her current condition and pushes her into a state of frustration and depression, but Mine resolves to fight back and push through against all odds. Despite her sickness and the scarcity of books, this young girl takes on this new life, determined to succeed even in her situation. It's a really touching story, and over the past 3 seasons, we've seen all the characters actually grow older and wiser, which is always a beautiful thing to see in an anime series. Ascendance of a Bookworm is one of those quiet yet powerful shows out there, as it follows Mine's tedious path to finally making her own book in a world that was initially like a nightmare to her. Number 1. Grimgar, Ashes and Illusions. Finally, we've gotten to the top pick of this video, and the isekai that takes this spot is Grimgar, Ashes and Illusions. This thrilling anime series started as a light novel by Aojimonji and Eri Shirai in 2013, and then it was adapted into a manga before getting an anime in 2016, which had 12 episodes of pure entertainment. The story focuses on a ragtag group of adventurers from another world. Just a couple weeks after being in the modern world, they suddenly find themselves in a fantasy world with no idea how they're going to survive, and unfortunately, no special powers to even help them. The group leader, Minato, however, helps his men to get familiar with the new environment, as harsh as it is. Unlike most isekai where the protagonists are overpowered and good-looking Riz gods, the Grimgar series doesn't feature a story where the MC has girls fawning over him left and right. Instead, it portrays a much different reality of what reincarnation in a new world could be. It gives you a sense of what would happen when the protagonist has no special powers and certainly no girls falling for him. This hidden series threw out all of the comedy and sexual tropes of isekai just so we could focus on showcasing the more grim realities of reincarnation. Even though the characters start to get used to the environment, it's obviously a gradual development and not some sudden blessing with insane powers. We even get to see some of the main characters lose their lives in this harsh world, making it clear just how truly grim things can get. Besides the tragedies interwoven in many parts of the story, we also see beautiful aspects like friendship and teamwork between the characters as they work together to solve problems and survive. Overall, Grimgar, Ashes and Illusions is a very deep isekai series that takes a very different approach from the conventional tropes. It's a great show that deserves a lot more attention than it's getting, so it wouldn't be such a bad idea to check it out. That wraps up this video for the 15 most underrated anime in the isekai genre, and if you haven't seen them, they're all very good watches that you'll enjoy. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.